The Stone Zone with legendary Republican strategist and political icon and pundit Roger Stone. Stone has served as a senior campaign aide to 3 Republican presidents. He is a New York Times best-selling author and a longtime friend and advisor of President Donald Trump. As an outspoken libertarian, Stone has appeared on thousands of broadcasts, spoken at countless venues, and lectured before the prestigious Oxford Political Union and the Cambridge Union Society. Due to his 4+ decades in the political and cultural arena, Stone has become a pop culture icon. And now, here's your host, Roger Stone.
Welcome, I'm Roger Stone, and yes, you are back in the Stone Zone. The battle for confirmation of President Trump's appointees continues on Capitol Hill as a small but dwindling band of rhinos seem to resist his appointees. However, Reuters has reported today that as many as 8 U.S. senators have reservations about the qualifications of Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard is, of course, the former 4-term Democrat Congresswoman turned Republican. She is a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army Reserve, a combat veteran who served her country in both Iraq and Kuwait. Why this attack on her? To help break this down, let me bring in my co-host, the editor-in-chief of Slingshot.news, Troy Smith.
Roger, it's always an honor to be back with you in the Stone Zone. You know, there's not many things I love in life, but talking politics here with you, definitely one of them. And I'm excited to get into this Gabbard news because, as you said, we have confirmation that there are several U.S. senators, particularly Republicans, Roger, who are eager to destroy Tulsi Gabbard. And we actually have pictures of those people. One is we want to throw up, that's John Curtis. He's the replacement for Mitt Romney. This guy is coming into, he's a senator-elect. We also have another picture that we can put up of Mitch McConnell. Now, remember, folks, these are the people that are reportedly, according to Reuters, considering voting against Tulsi Gabbard, who has been nominated to DNI. And we have another picture here, Lisa Murkowski, another one that is apparently planning to vote against Gabbard, or at least considering it, and Susan Collins as well. Now, Roger, these are just a few of the names, but we've also heard that Gabbard has met with Democrat senators. So I'm eager to ask you, how do you think this vote is going to shake out? Are there going to be Democrats who support Gabbard? And of those Republicans we just showed and the 4 more who are not named to this point, how many do you think will betray Trump and Gabbard and our country really in this confirmation vote? What are your thoughts?
First of all, I think it is early to say. Let's figure out what we don't know to be true. The claim by Reuters that there are as many as 8 U.S. senators is disinformation. This is an effort by Reuters to make that a self-fulfilling prophecy. In other words, one senator sees that and says, oh, well, there are obviously other senators beyond me. I cannot, based on my own sources and my own vote counting and my own intelligence about what's going on in the Senate, locate more than 3 potential Republicans who may vote against Gabbard. Gabbard, by the way, has put out a statement saying that this report by Reuters is false based on her own meetings with individual senators. Now let's look at some of those who have reportedly questioned her qualifications. Lisa Murkowski was appointed to the U.S. Senate by her father. So her father was the U.S. Senator. Then he ran for governor. Once he was elected governor of Alaska, he resigned the Senate seat, was sworn in as governor. Then as governor, he appointed his daughter to his vacant seat. She then held on to this seat because Alaska has this strange ranked choice voting. This is where the U.S. Senator from Alaska is not elected by a majority of the voters, but only elected when the first and second choice of all the voters are totaled. The Alaska Republicans attempted to repeal ranked choice voting, and they very, very narrowly lost a plebiscite in Alaska. I think it was by 684 votes. And there have been serious questions as to whether that was a legitimate question or whether there was fraud. Lisa Murkowski does not live in Alaska. Her children go to private school in D.C. She is the ultimate swamp creature. But there are some promising questions here about this pending vote. Here, I think, is the crux of it, Troy, which is they would like to kill Gabbard's nomination in committee. If they can stop her from getting out of committee and therefore prevent her from having a hearing, they would be empowered. Tulsi Gabbard in a televised hearing with this many pyrotechnics around it is an opportunity for her to shine, an opportunity for her to address her critics, whether it is those who say that she is not loyal to the country because she doesn't want to ship billions more to Ukraine, or whether it is those who say simply because she was concerned about the potential mass slaughter of hundreds of thousands of Christians in Syria, that she's not a loyal American. This is an absurdity. Then you have to ask yourself, Troy, what is it about Tulsi Gabbard that they seek to destroy her? Is it that she used to be a Democrat? I think not. I think there's a recognition that as the national director of intelligence, she would be at the nexus of our intelligence agencies, and therefore she would have firsthand evidence that our intelligence agencies and some of our law enforcement agencies, such as the CIA and the FBI, are not impartial, are not non-political, and have been weaponized. This is poison for them. So what we have here is an op. This is a psyop to create widespread doubt, to try to deny her a positive vote to come out of committee. If she goes to a hearing, she will shine in a hearing. This is also true of Robert F. Kennedy. You can expect Kennedy to be treated with the same level of opposition because, again, he is the greatest single threat to the deep state. President Trump has said, for example, that Robert Kennedy would head a commission to look into all previous presidential assassination attempts. That means he could examine the assassination attempt of his uncle, President John F. Kennedy, where we still haven't declassified all the documents. He could examine the successful assassination of his father, Senator Robert Kennedy. He could re-examine the attempted assassination of President Ronald Reagan, where we've never been told the entire full official story. He could also examine the 2 attempts to assassinate Donald Trump that we're aware of, something that the FBI is not doing, and with I think most Americans believe we have not been told the full truth. So these threats to the established order are petrifying to the establishment, which is why today they're trying to smear Tulsi Gabbard, and tomorrow they'll be trying to smear Robert Kennedy. Now, to go to your broader question, could a handful of Democrats save the day here? I think that is possible. Bernie Sanders is one who has speculated that he may vote for Gabbard or Kennedy or both because of his suspicions about the surveillance state, his opposition to war. This would be reverting to the old Bernie Sanders, the pre-Hillary, pre-Kamala Bernie Sanders. That would be encouraging. Fetterman has made interesting noises today about possibly breaking ranks. I would point out to you, Troy, that when Joe Biden was elected president, the Democrats only had 50 U.S. senators, yet they got bipartisan confirmation of all of his cabinet selections. Now, technically, the Senate's role here is to vote solely on the qualifications of the nominees, not on the basis of their philosophy or their disagreement. You've seen a shift here where, for example, Adam Kinzinger raised the question of Tulsi Gabbard's loyalty to the country, put up a graphic of her wearing a Russian military information uniform. There it is. This is a vicious smear, questioning whether she's a loyal American. You now see that the left has shifted to the question of her qualifications, trying to smear her on that. Specifically, they are running with this narrative that she doesn't understand the 702 data collection process, that she doesn't understand the FISA warrant process. These are baseless attacks meant to try to stop her in committee. If they can stop her from getting to a hearing, well, President Trump may have no choice but to consider a recess appointment for all of his nominees. Again, I don't think there are any more than 3 Republicans who may vote against her. This idea that there are 8 is an attempt to create a stampede to try to thwart her nomination.
Well, and also, Roger, there's no mistake that these are the effective members of this new political realignment. And I think in this process, the Democrats are looking at this in the long game and say these are people that are going to have an effect on politics for a long time to come, and they're seeing this nomination process as a chance to ding these people up, hypothetically, or metaphorically speaking. They want to ding them up for the future because they're trying to weaken the competition for this political realignment and the Donald Trump Make America Great Again movement moving forward. Another key piece of this, Roger, is Trump's nominee for FBI director, Kash Patel. And he is facing some opposition in the Senate, not from Republicans, but from Democrats mainly. One of your favorites, pencil neck himself, Adam Schiff, was on mainstream media talking about why he's going to vote against Kash Patel and trashing Kash Patel. This is a guy that's seriously wrapped up in the Russian collusion hoax, Adam Schiff. This is a guy who really would be implicated if Kash Patel is able to get to the truth of the matter of the Russian collusion hoax. I believe he would be among those implicated. So looks like he's running scared here. Let's run this clip and then get your thoughts on Adam Schiff panicking the idea of Kash Patel taking over at the FBI.
Well, let me just say, with respect to some of the nominees like Kash Patel, this is someone, in my view, who is not qualified to be FBI director, and someone who claimed, for example, that he wanted to shut down FBI headquarters early in his tenure and open a museum to the deep state. So this is a conspiracy theorist.
The president-elect has also talked about prosecuting members of the January.
Again, who is the biggest conspiracy theorist of them all? Adam Schiff, who continues to say, first of all, that he's seen more than circumstantial evidence of Russian collusion with the Trump campaign, yet he produced none whatsoever, zero. Then on defense, he's claimed that he can justify the entire Russian collusion hoax based on the false premise that a high-level Trump campaign operative shared polling information with a Russian intelligence asset. We've debunked that repeatedly right here on the Stone Zone because it's a lie. The high-level campaign official he's referring to is Paul Manafort. This allegedly happened at a time that Manafort and Trump pollster Tony Fabrizio both assert that the campaign had no private proprietary polling information to share. Consequently, anything Manafort may have shared with his contact, a man named Konstantin Kilimnik, would have been public information, something you could learn online. And then there's the additional problem of the fact that Konstantin Kilimnik is not only not a Russian intelligence asset, as Adam Schiff claims, but he's actually a U.S. intelligence asset. And the independent journalist Matt Taibbi has absolutely proven that. So their entire narrative falls apart. Let's go to the broader question of whether Kash Patel is qualified. First of all, the idea of Adam Schiff calling anyone a conspiracy theorist is laughable because he is the king of the conspiracy theories. Two huge conspiracy theories, Russian collusion and Ukrainian corruption, both fabricated nonsense. But the question about whether Kash Patel is qualified. Kash Patel has been a federal prosecutor who's won numerous intelligence cases, tried more than 50 intelligence cases, who's been chief of staff for the U.S. Department of Defense. That is a gigantic management job. Who was chief counsel to the House Intelligence Committee under Chairman Devin Nunes, where he conducted the Russian collusion investigation. Now, Troy, if you go back and look at the Nunes report, it is all absolutely correct. It is prescient. They correctly report, as John Durham, the special counsel, later confirms, that there is no Russian collusion, that there is no WikiLeaks collaboration with the Trump campaign. What you have here is palpable fear by those like Christopher Wray and former acting Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, and in this case, Adam Schiff, that they're going to be held accountable. This is why you have this constant claim that Trump is about revenge, Trump is about retribution, Trump is about punishing his enemies. No, Trump is about rebalancing the scales of justice so we have one standard of justice, so that our institutions like the Justice Department, like our courts, are not weaponized politically, which has clearly happened not only to myself, but to General Michael Flynn, and of course to President Donald Trump himself. So, Troy, you will remember that after Tulsi Gabbard criticized Kamala Harris, very strangely, she was put on a secret domestic terrorist watch list by the TSA. Just a moment, we're going to interview the brave air marshal who came forward to disclose that whistleblower information. But let's go to that video of Tulsi Gabbard essentially destroying Kamala Harris, which is what got her on that watch list to begin with. Let's roll that.
I want to bring the conversation back to the broken criminal justice system that is disproportionately negatively impacting black and brown people all across this country today. Now, Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record. There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence. She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. And she fought to keep cash bail system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Senator Harris, your response.
As the elected Attorney General of California, I did the work of significantly reforming the criminal justice system of a state of 40 million people, which became a national model for the work that needs to be done. And I am proud of that work. And I am proud of making a decision to not just give fancy speeches or be in a legislative body and give speeches on the floor, but actually doing the work of being in the position to use the power that I had to reform a system that is badly in need of reform. That is why we created initiatives that were about reentering former offenders and getting them counseling.
The bottom line is, Senator Harris, when you are in a position to make a difference and an impact in these people's lives, you did not. And worse yet, in the case of those who were on death row, innocent people, you actually blocked evidence from being revealed that would have freed them until you were forced to do so. There is no excuse for that. And the people who suffered under your reign as prosecutor, you owe them an apology.
So that's how you get on the hit list of the deep state. That's how you get enrolled in a secret domestic terrorist spying operation by the TSA. The woman who came forward to expose this is and speak on behalf of a number of whistleblowers is Sonia LoBosco. She's with the Air Marshals Association, and she joins us now.
Thanks, Roger, for having me. How are you?
I'm excellent. So I think this is a story that unfortunately cycled in and out of our news a little too quickly because it is, in my view, outrageous. There's no justification for the federal government, in this case, the TSA, to have a decorated war hero and a woman who has a current rank of lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army Reserve and therefore has top secret clearances today on this secret domestic terrorist raid. This is a shocking story that those in the deep state who are critics of Tulsi Gabbard wanted to cycle in and out of the news as quickly as possible. So that's why I wanted to have you on today to just review the facts here for our audience on the Stone Zone.
Yeah, Roger. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. We have a serving lieutenant colonel, two-time war deployed in the war twice, former serving congresswoman in our congressional house, and we are tracking her as if she has done something against our country. What TSA has done to tarnish Lieutenant Colonel Tulsi Gabbard is unbelievable. It's disgusting. It's tyranny. And this is what's happened in the last 4 years within this agency, the Transportation Security Administration. They have not been held accountable for the things that they've done against the American people. And what we're witnessing right now with Lieutenant Gabbard is the same type of tyranny. And by the way, they still haven't stepped up to the plate and they haven't been accountable as to why they put Miss Gabbard and her entire family on this suspected domestic terrorist watch list.
Yeah, I guess what's particularly disturbing to me here, Sonia, is that the House Republicans who pledged to investigate this have really done nothing. And we have no answers from the Biden administration. So You know the system better than most Americans because of your tenure as an air marshal and your access to a number of whistleblowers. Who in the TSA could have made this decision to place a former congresswoman who served her country with distinction on a domestic terrorist watch list when she's very clearly not a domestic terrorist? Who could have made this decision?
Well, that falls squarely on the shoulders of the administrator, the current administrator, TSA, David Pekoski, who is a Senate confirmed administrator. He was confirmed again in September of 2022 by the Senate. At the same time, he had been targeting American citizens at the request of Benny Thompson. There was a letter sent from Chairman Benny Thompson, the chairman of the January 6th committee, over to TSA Administrator Pekoski, requesting him to target white supremacists and suspected domestic terrorists. And that's when, Roger, that's when it all started, and TSA had the green light to do anything that they wanted.
This is the police state writ large. This is surveillance of a great American patriot without any justification or any evidence. Yet we get no answers, and I hate to say it, but the House Republicans have been asleep at the switch. They vowed to get to the bottom of this, and they haven't. They fire off strong letters asking questions, but when they get no answers, they don't do anything about it. It's very, very disturbing. Again, I think, and Troy, you can comment on this, the whole reason that they have sought to smear Tulsi Gabbard here and try to eliminate her is because they fear her. They realize that in this key position of the president's national intelligence advisor, that she would be in a position to understand and see all of the epic corruption of our FBI, our Central Intelligence Agency, as well as the TSA. That is why she has been targeted. Troy?
Well, and Roger, I mean, on top of that, this is a person that the U.S. government was comfortable sending to war. So she's good enough to go to war and fight for people in Washington, D.C. And when they, sign a law or decide that they want to go to war, she's all right to go fight their wars. But the idea that a common person, somebody who is actually not an elitist, somebody who doesn't come from politics, would actually have control. I think that's part of the reason, Roger, we're seeing this scramble to block her in the Senate by these people, because they don't want somebody with ordinary experiences. Ma'am, I wanted to ask you, we've seen the rates of people signing up for the military continue to drop. And it's kind of sad, I think, for a lot of people. But the way that Ms. Gabbard's being treated, this is exactly why people aren't signing up for the military anymore, because there's a fundamental lack of respect here for the people that are signing over their lives, isn't there? I mean, that's kind of what I'm reading on this.
Oh, Troy, you're absolutely correct. I mean, to be so disgraceful, Miss Gabbard joined the military after 9/11, the same as I joined the Federal Air Marshals Service, and Federal Air Marshals came over after 9/11. And to know that they are doing this, number one, to an American citizen, number two, to a fellow sister who is dedicated her life to serving our country, and then number three, to not have any answers or any type of investigation or any type of information that was vetted, that she's some type of threat, to smear her, it's disgraceful.
Sonia, I want to ask you about another issue since we have you, and that is something you care passionately about, and that is the scourge of child sex trafficking. Now, the establishment media and the political establishment can try to pretend that this is a non-existent problem, that this is a conspiracy theory dreamed up in the fever swamps of the far right, but we know differently. I'm still trying to understand why President Trump would issue a number of executive orders to fight child sex trafficking. Then immediately upon becoming president, Joe Biden would repeal those orders. Your thoughts on this, Sonia?
I mean, Roger, it's absolutely, I mean, when we think about the women and children that have come across the open border, it's not for a better life. These women and children are being trafficked. We have 500,000 children missing right now in the United States. We probably have more than that, but we have a minimum of 500,000. We've had whistleblowers from DHS and HHS come forward to tell the American people and testify in Congress. Now, this is testimony that's on the record, that unaccompanied minors are being given to MS-13 and Trans-Aragua, transnational criminal organizations. We are handing our children over at the tune financing about $33 to $50 billion for these non-government organizations to continue to have this open air trafficking, and it's absolutely disgusting.
It's interesting that this happens at a time when the New York City Council is demanding the destruction of New York City's gang database. And the radicals who dominate the New York City Council, I think, are going to get the database totally deleted and erased. That makes it impossible for Tom Homan and those who are charged with the mission of tracking down and deporting violent terrorist criminals to do their job. But that is the radical left of the Democrat Party. Sonia, I know the answer to this question, but it's a softball. I have been among those who recommended you to this administration as someone who I think would be in the forefront of the fight against child sex trafficking. Were you to be selected by, say, Secretary Kennedy, once he is confirmed, and by President Trump, would you be willing to serve in such a capacity?
I absolutely would, Roger. I would be honored to go and help find our children.
There you have it. Sonia LoBosco, a selfless patriot. Let me ask you this, Sonia. For those who are whistleblowers among the Air Marshals, there are repercussions, are there not, for people stepping forward to tell the truth?
There are a lot of repercussions, and we're hoping with the next administration that, we can change the way whistleblowers are treated today. We need a program that's set up that protects our whistleblowers. By the way, they're reporting fraud, waste, and abuse. These are things the government wants to trim the budget. You want to make sure that we're not having waste and abuse. The employees working within the office will come forward and tell you, but you have to offer them valid protection, and you have to offer them the ability to come forward in an open manner without getting crushed and stepped on by the federal government because they're trying to silence you.
Yeah, it is very interesting that the protections regarding whistleblowers were never actually used to inform those in government. So even the protections that are available for whistleblowers were hidden from the average federal employee by our FBI. Number of stories on that. Troy, next question to you.
Absolutely. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this because I think as so many Americans, we deal with the TSA and a lot of us, have problems with them. As somebody who joined to serve your country and to kind of help with this effort after 9/11, what kind of reforms do you think we should see over at the TSA? I mean, do you think it requires a whole overhaul? Is it just a restructuring? How do you think we begin to reform that in a Trump administration to make it better and ensure that things like this never happen, like happened to Ms. Gabbard?
Well, I think the first thing we have to do is remove the federal air marshals within TSA. The air marshals are a law enforcement component, and we're nestled inside an administrative agency that never works properly because you have the administrative 75,000 bureaucrats who are unelected running the machine over for the left, doing whatever they want for government overreach. So we have to take our law enforcement officers out of an area where they can be told by an administrative person what laws to enforce and what not. That's the first part, Troy. The second part of this is TSA. We have got to cut the funding off. We've got to stop the funding. We're paying $11 billion right now as the budget for TSA. They have a 95% failure rate in the airport. 95% when red teams come in to try to get items and prohibited items through security, 95% of the time TSA fails. It's not a workable system.
I think those are common sense reforms. All right, let me thank Sonia LoBosco from the Air Marshals Association, a brave patriot who has risked her job and her position in government to come forward and expose the outrageous surveillance of Tulsi Gabbard. Again, a decorated war hero who served her country with distinction, being spied on, physically spied on, whenever she or members of her family get on an airplane. We still have no answers about this. It does demonstrate what I said earlier, which is Tulsi Gabbard and her independence and her knowledge scare the daylights out of those who are weaponizing our criminal justice system and our intelligence agencies to spy on all of the American people. And we still have no answers to justify this decision. Sonia, thank you so much for joining us today on the Stone Zone, and God bless you in your continued efforts to not only just fight child sex trafficking, but support our Constitution and our president.
Thank you, Roger. And Troy, thank you very much for having me.
All right, we're going to go to a quick commercial break. Recently, Candace Owens had a terrific broadcast in which she highlighted the true history of the USS Liberty. Now, the USS Liberty was an American ship that was attacked with permission and authorization by the Israelis, that authorization coming from President Lyndon Baines Johnson. I documented this in my book, The Man Who Killed Kennedy, The Case Against LBJ, back in 2015. This New York Times bestseller has all the documentation of this shocking charge. So if you are looking for the ultimate Christmas present or holiday gift for the person in your family who's interested in politics and history, or maybe interested in the truth of the assassination regarding President John F. Kennedy, you can get your copy signed by me in time for Christmas by going to themanwhokilledkennedy.com. That is themanwhokilledkennedy.com. This is a shocking potboiler, if you will. It's a New York Times bestseller. If you choose to go get it at, say, Amazon.com or Barnes & Noble, in other words, if you choose to give your money to a multinational corporation that hates your guts, well, at least order the paperback edition because it has 3 additional chapters that were published after the hardcover. I would urge you to go to themanwhokilledkennedy.com. That way you can get a personally inscribed copy of the book signed by me in time for Christmas. Now we'll return to Troy Smith. Troy, what else do you have for the good of the order?
Well, Roger, we have a truth social post from President-elect Donald Trump, which I think we want to put up. It's about Liz Cheney, basically. And it's basically saying that she could be in a lot of trouble. I'm going to read this word for word so we have it up here. Liz Cheney could be in a lot of trouble based on the evidence obtained by the subcommittee, which states that, quote, numerous federal laws were likely broken by Liz Cheney, and these violations should be investigated by the FBI, end quote. Thank you to Congressman Barry Loudermilk on a job well done, Newsmax by Greg Kelly. So that's a pretty strong statement from Trump, Roger. We know that Liz Cheney was caught counseling some of these witnesses, which we've kind of talked about here on the Stone Zone. Eager to get your thoughts on what's going on and the chances of Liz Cheney finally seeing some justice for what she's been doing for a long time now.
Look, I think it is indisputable that Liz Cheney was suborning perjury. She went around the backs of the attorneys representing witnesses, specifically behind the back of Stephen Passantino, who was the lawyer representing Cassidy Hutchinson, to basically coach Hutchinson to perjure herself on national television to shape these hearings as a weapon against President Donald Trump. Now, I can specifically say that in Hutchinson's testimony, she said that President Trump instructed his White House Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows, to call Roger Stone and General Michael Flynn on January 5th to find out what was going to happen on the 6th. This is a perjurious lie. There is no phone call. That never took place. Phone records would reveal that. There is no such phone record because neither General Flynn nor myself had any contact with the President's Chief of Staff on January 5th, or in my case, any other date. I think that's also true of General Flynn. Now, Hutchinson goes on to say, again, coached by Cheney, that Mark Meadows, the President's Chief of Staff, was going to a meeting in the Willard Hotel in an alleged war room, and that she persuaded him not to attend said meeting, but that after the meeting, he called Roger Stone and General Flynn to get a download. Again, this is perjury. This is a lie. Neither General Flynn nor I were ever in any war room in the Willard. If there is a war room in the Willard, I am unaware of it. I've seen allegations of others being in a war room, but I was certainly never in them. The Washington Post confirmed with 3 separate sources that I was not involved in any effort to delay the certification of the Electoral College. Another false narrative. So, yeah, I think that the entire January 6th narrative is one that is problematic. First, there are suppressing of some witnesses, so we never hear from Ray Epps on national television. Although I think, as Dr. Darren Beatty over at Revolver has pretty much documented. Epps is a government informant. They play with weasel words because he may not have been full-time, or he may have not been paid, or his status is not clear. But the fact that he's never called to testify on national television is incredibly suspicious. Meanwhile, they have Cassidy Hutchinson falsely claiming that Donald Trump tried to wrestle the steering wheel from his presidential vehicle from a Secret Service agent. That has never been documented, largely because it never actually happened. In some cases, they create videos with a mismatched visual and audio track. You can use a simple AI software detection program to look at any of the videos they showed on their nationally televised hearings to find out that these are falsehoods. These were fabrications. This is a made-for-television extravaganza. In fact, the House Democrats, first of all, they don't have a legally constituted committee. The Republicans recommended for the committee by the then minority leader are ignored. And instead, Nancy Pelosi puts Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger, two certified Trump haters, on the committee so she can call it bipartisan. But it's not bipartisan. This is a lynch mob. And then when the falsity of their entire narrative comes to light, the Democrats destroy all of the committee records so they can bury their own misconduct. So I believe Speaker Johnson has done a great job here by empowering Congressman Loudermilk. Read this report for yourself. I think that they are busted. This is why Benny Thompson, the chairman of the committee, you remember him, Troy. He's the guy who had already filed a civil suit against Donald Trump, accusing the president of fomenting violence on January 6th. Then he quickly withdraws the civil suit so he can be appointed chairman of a committee that is allegedly an unbiased fact-finding investigation, when in fact he's a bitter anti-Trump partisan. This is why Benny Thompson has said in an interview that he would gladly accept a pardon from Joe Biden on his way out the door. My guess is right now, Jamie Raskin, Adam Schiff, Zoe Lofgren, if you can sober her up, they're all desperately hoping to have some executive clemency that protects them from consequences for their actions. And when you suggest that their actions be examined, they scream and holler, this is retribution, this is revenge. No, it is about recalibrating the scales of justice so that we have one standard, as opposed to their entirely false narrative that we've seen again and again. First, it was the Russian collusion hoax, which is proven to be a hoax. We addressed that earlier. Secondarily was their whole Ukrainian narrative. That's a fraud as well. And their January 6th narrative. Anytime you want to hold these people liable for what they have done, they scream that they're being persecuted, when in fact they're the ones using the weapons of government to persecute Donald Trump.
Well, and that's exactly right, Roger. And I want to highlight something else about that January 6th committee, because, you know, we have this committee that was trying to charge people and trying to put people in jail. And you look at what they did in the evidence department, Roger. It was Nancy Pelosi's daughter that was recording, and they selectively used this footage that Nancy Pelosi's daughter had come up with. And then afterwards, months after, you remember, we played it here on the Stone Zone, video was revealed from the daughter and her team of Pelosi in the car saying, I take full responsibility for what happened. She's yelling at her, a security head or whatever, Terry. And she's saying, what's going on, Terry? Why do we not have these troops here? Why do we not have the National Guard here? I take full responsibility. We have to know what's going on. So that wasn't used when they were charging people. And I think we have to have an investigation. One, we have to know what kind of footage was left out. We have to review that, but as you said, has been destroyed. And two, I think anybody involved with this committee, Roger, has to be looked at seriously for expulsion from Congress, because you talk about George Santos getting kicked out over some corruption things. What these people have done with the January 6th committee makes that look like peanuts. It's not like it's not, he still committed the crime. He's still, you know, just terrible, I think. But as far as what these people did, you're talking about misconduct of the highest order. Not only that, but it was used for election purposes, Roger. They ran campaigns on this. They raised millions of dollars on this. It has to be addressed. And the abuses by these people, I think they know how badly they abuse the law. And that's why when we talk about accountability, they get really scared. We have another clip of Adam Schiff talking about this before we get off the January 6th committee. And he's talking about how proud he and his team are. I want to play this to show the fear is real that we're going to have an investigation and get to see the footage that Pelosi's daughter left out. We're going to get to see the transcripts from these calls that Liz Cheney was making and all these. Let's roll that clip of Schiff and then come back to Roger.
The president-elect has also talked about prosecuting members of the January 6th committee like you. I know you said you don't want a preemptive pardon from President Biden. Is that because you think the Trump administration will not actually prosecute?
I don't know what the Trump administration will do, but it's for a couple of reasons. First, those of us on the committee are very proud of the work we did. We were doing vital, quintessential oversight of a violent attack on the Capitol. So I think it's unnecessary.
Again, the series of lies here, I think you've identified. Let's start with the most important one. It is absolutely clear, first documented by Kash Patel with the actual letters, but then certified by House committee, that President Donald Trump offered the mayor of D.C. and the speaker, Nancy Pelosi, National Guard troops to protect the Capitol. They have repeatedly denied this and repeatedly said it's untrue, yet the documented records prove that it is entirely true. Secondarily, it is absolutely clear that President Donald Trump is on Twitter telling people to peacefully and patriotically march to the Capitol. That gets deleted and erased as if it never happens, never reported by the committee, because it cuts against their false narrative that Trump was fomenting violence. There are so many pieces of evidence here of the corruption of this investigation. Look, Schiff is whistling through the graveyard here when he says he doesn't want a pardon. He desperately wants a pardon. Now you go to the question of George Stephanopoulos, who was conducting that interview. Now, George Stephanopoulos is an interesting example. Prior to his being a big talking head on ABC, well, he was a political operative working for Bill Clinton. And in his role for Bill Clinton, his specific role was to stifle those women who came forward to say that they had been the target of sexual assaults by Bill Clinton. So it is ironic that a figure who was actively involved in the efforts to terrorize and silence Bill Clinton's sexual assault victims comes forward and accuses President Donald Trump of rape on national television. Trump, as I'm sure you have seen, sues ABC, and knowing that they don't have a leg to stand on, to be very specific, Stephanopoulos has said Trump has been held liable for rape by a court. That is not accurate. That's not what the New York courts ruled. And ABC has to turn over $15 million to settle that lawsuit. This, to me, sets the stage for a new lawsuit, which I have talked about here on the show. It's getting quite a bit of media coverage, and that is the Illinois governor, J.B. Pritzker. Now, Pritzker is a billionaire who purchased the governorship. He's been busy trying to destroy the Second Amendment in Illinois. He is trying to emulate the state of New York with this bail-less criminal justice system where violent criminals are essentially charged and then put right back out on the street without ever having to post bail. Yet another terrible idea. But Pritzker, on at least 3 occasions, is on national television, specifically CNN, accusing Trump of being a rapist. So rather than the president suing, let's say, the Des Moines Register for publishing a poll that they probably know is a fraud, that shows Kamala Harris strangely ahead in a state that Donald Trump, I think, carried Iowa by almost 19 points, I believe. Instead of that lawsuit, I would recommend that the president file suit against this wayward billionaire. Given the precedent of the ABC legal victory, I believe the president would have a very strong case.
Well, I agree with you, Roger, but I would also add that there's a very important aspect to this, and I think I just want people to understand, because conservatives out there, there's a tremendous amount of leverage that's involved in these kind of lawsuits, and I've seen this just as a member of the media. You have to really be careful about what you do, but when it comes to sources, particularly in when it comes to political sources, and you're talking about these things, there is a process for this. And it's my opinion, Roger, that this lawsuit, they didn't have a leg to stand on. That's true. But to me, this was more about making it go away. They want this thing to just disappear. I would say, and I just say that because there's a lot of conservatives out there who will see this, and I've seen people say this. This means that the media is being held accountable. I don't view it that way. I think that this was a legal spat between Trump and ABC, which is worth hundreds of billions of dollars, decided that they were going to basically just throw a $15 million down a hole and say, okay, you go away. Now, Trump is brilliant for how he's portrayed that. I think, in just my opinion, he's brilliant at how he's portrayed that as this huge win, and conservatives should be excited the fact that we are having a legal win. But I caution any conservatives out there who want to take similar action. There's a tremendous amount of leverage that the office of the President of the United States carries, and any company out there, they are they're really not eager to be in court with the President of the United States. And I would argue, based on the Constitution and based on how things work, it's kind of a conflict of interest to even have the President of the United States in a courtroom. I would say it's kind of considering he's the guy that appoints the judiciary in many cases, the idea that he's going to be in court, it speaks to this immunity question that we've been kicking around for this entire election cycle. And Roger, one of the things that I wanted to highlight here as we continue to roll through the news of what's going on, that we have another video of Eric Adams, the New York mayor. Now, we do have a headline here that Trump is considering reportedly giving a pardon to Eric Adams, who we've been documenting here has had a lot of problems with the FBI and people getting indicted around him. And there's a headline there. Trump says he's looking at a pardon. Now, this is speculation. And we have a video of the mayor kind of pivoting. He's been really kind of trashing the left, trying to make it more politically, I think, appealing to the right. So let's roll that clip and then get your thoughts. Is it possible that Eric Adams is going to get a pardon here?
Think about the shooter. Ivy League, grew up in an affluent household. His manifesto clearly is showing some signs of hating. Our children are being radicalized. I said this over and over again. Everybody's like, what are you talking about, Eric? And, our children are being radicalized to hate the America, to hate the country that put them where they are. This person had all that one wants to have, but he hated everything to the point of shooting someone. And we better deal with the radicalization of our young people. And, people could, they could complain that I'm saying it, but I'm seeing it. I'm seeing our bench is hating the team. And we better start acknowledging and focusing on that. And so having dance parties, celebrating the death of someone, I don't support that.
A couple things. First of all, let's go back to the ABC question. I guess I disagree with you, Troy, because under the New York Times versus Sullivan standard is a very, very high standard. Unfortunately, you can get away in this country with libeling people. That's why, for example, people accuse me of being a Russian spy, which is a laughable nonsense, but I have no ability to sue them. ABC calculated that they would lose this lawsuit. That is why they settled, and it's an embarrassment, in all honesty. I think the president would have a strong suit against Pritzker because one of the keys here is malice. He has to knowingly say something false because he had malice for Trump, and I think that is quite provable. Secondarily, though, let's go to the question of Eric Adams. Adams is very skillfully repositioning himself contrary to history. Let's be clear. Eric Adams ran for mayor of New York City as a full-throated advocate for New York City to be a sanctuary city for illegals. Eric Adams said on numerous occasions that illegals were, quote, welcome in New York and always would be. As mayor, Eric Adams situated the illegal migrant shelters in stable working class neighborhoods like Staten Island, rather than in his base areas of the city. And his only real complaint with the Biden administration was that they didn't give him millions of dollars to deal with the problem that they had created. Now, he does say this will destroy New York City. He's referring, when he says that, to the cost of housing and accommodating the migrants. But this narrative that he is an opponent of the open borders policies of Joe Biden is simply false. Then secondarily, there is an overall effort to trivialize the charges against him. So you see, for example, that Kat Timpf on Gutfeld jokes that he's charged with upgrading his ticket on Turkish Airlines from coach to first class and maybe got an extra Bloody Mary. With all due respect, I don't think Kat Timpf has read the indictment. Mike Cernovich, who's a friend of mine, a very smart guy, says that the charges against Adams are chicken shit. Well, again, I would submit you maybe not have read the indictment. Specifically, among other things, Eric Adams is charged with taking $100,000 from Turkey, the country, laundering it to straw donors, and submitting it to New York City's campaign finance matching program. So he takes $100,000 from the Turks and turns it into $800,000. Now, that's the quid. The quo is that Mayor Eric Adams allowed the Turkish to inhabit and operate a building in Manhattan for which they had no occupancy permit and could not get an occupancy permit without millions of dollars of renovations on the building they owned. This is a serious matter of corruption. This is not a small matter. Now, add to it that Adams has 2 sexual assault claims filed against him, which the city of New York is illegally paying for his defense in. This is somewhat ironic. Troy, what happened here is the billionaire Reid Hoffman basically bribes Democrat legislators in New York to extend the statute of limitations so that this lunatic E. Jean Carroll can claim that President Donald Trump assaulted her sexually in a dressing room at Bergdorf Goodman's, an upscale department store in Manhattan. There's several problems with this. First and foremost is the fact that this exact narrative seemed to have been lifted from an episode of Law and Order. Then secondarily, she comes forward and claims that she's wearing a specific designer dress at the time that Trump assaulted her, only to learn that that dress had not yet been produced by the designer in question. Then she goes on CNN with the host there and says that she finds the whole notion of rape to be sexy. Well, Anderson Cooper cut to an immediate commercial, as you might imagine. But here's the irony. When they extended the statute of limitations to be able to jam Trump up in this false allegation, little did they know that women would come forward and file formal complaints against Eric Adams, the Democrat mayor of New York City, and Governor Andrew Cuomo. And those complaints against Cuomo actually caused him to lose his governorship at the hands of Letitia James. Now, the reason this is interesting is Letitia James herself has suppressed complaints by women that her own chief of staff has sexually assaulted women, and also has suppressed a claim against Letitia James herself, where she was accused of sexual assault by a woman who's now in Alabama. These are very serious allegations, but Letitia James has used her authority as the Attorney General of New York to suppress these claims. I think we're going to learn a lot more about Letitia James. I think she has a number of questions to answer. One is the question about her personal wealth. How does she go from being worth a few dollars when she's on the city council to being worth millions of dollars and having millions of dollars worth of real estate? She's essentially a slumlord today. Secondarily, as we've documented here on the StoneZONE numerous times, she has a flood of questionable campaign contributions that are essentially laundered to her through Act Blue, the Democrat payment processing website, where they turn off the credit card verification properties so you can make multiple contributions in the name of someone who isn't making the contribution at all. These are called Smurfs. This has been well documented. And now you add to that these questions about Letitia James. I think that Letitia James is going to be very much in the news in coming weeks. My sources tell me that Letitia James is among those appealing to President Joe Biden for a preemptive pardon for illegal acts that she may have engaged in. So this is going to be very interesting to see unfold, Troy.
No, I agree with you, Roger. And I think that as we move closer to the Trump presidency, it's going to be interesting to see how these people are reacting. And I think we are in a position right now where a lot of Washington is they're accepting the fact that they're going to have to deal with Trump, and there's emotions boiling over. There's kind of an interesting exchange I wanted to play for you real quick at the end here, Roger. This is Dick Durbin snapping at a CNN reporter. It's kind of bizarre to see what he says here. I want to play this and get your thoughts on the overall tension in D.C. rising as we head into this second Trump term. Let's roll that.
Members are giving themselves a pay raise. Do you guys deserve a pay raise?
Well, that's news to me. It's good news. You know, what has it been, 10 years or 14 years of no COLA, no change at all? I think it's about time something's done.
You support giving yourselves a pay raise?
How would I not know about a pay raise?
But I mean, people look at the performance of Congress and say, why should we give them more money?
What about the media? Think about that for a second.
And we're not paid by public money.
I know you're not, but I mean, half of your listeners are not there anymore. You're still getting the same paycheck? What's going on?
Well, I mean, your taxpayer money. I mean, you guys deserve a raise. And Durbin essentially said that, yes, they should give themselves a raise. And what also is notable, though, to Jim, he wasn't aware that this was in the provision. Yeah. And he's the #2 Senate Democrat. It just shows you how this was negotiated among a handful of members, and they're going to have to vote on this. And members really won't have time to read it either, Jim.
Unreal. But Manu, I have to say, you are worth every penny. Manu Raju up on Capitol Hill for us. Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's discuss more now with Republican Congressman Tim Burchett of Tennessee. Congressman, thanks for being here this morning.
That was delightful to watch the left wing of the Democratic Party fighting with the very same fake news media outlets that have empowered their entire false narrative. Enjoyable to see the left attacking each other. The senator's right about one thing. I don't get my news from CNN. For some reason, I don't eat out of the toilet. And their viewership is dropping by record margins, whether it's MSNBC or CNN, as the American people abandon their entire chain of false narratives. Excellent judgment on your part, grabbing that clip for the enjoyment of our audience. Folks, I want to remind you before we close here that you can watch us every day at 4 o'clock Central, 5 o'clock Eastern at worldviewtube.com, worldviewtube.com. If you missed the show there, you have another opportunity to see it at 8 p.m. Eastern by going to rumble.com/Roger Stone. That's rumble.com/Roger Stone. So go to the App Store now, download the Rumble app to your phone, follow us here at the Stone Zone, and set a notification so you don't miss any of our epic reporting right here on the Stone Zone. I want to thank Sonia LoBosco from the National Association of Air Marshals for joining us today to expose how Tulsi Gabbard was illegitimately placed on a secret TSA domestic terrorist watch list, a part of the effort to discredit her because, well, they're afraid she's going to expose the epic corruption of our intelligence agencies and some agencies of law enforcement. I also want to thank my co-host, Troy Smith. You can find him over at Slingshot.news. Until tomorrow, I'm Roger Stone. This has been the Stone Zone. God bless you and Godspeed.
A man who's gone through hell, but he's kept going, and he's smart and he's strong, and people love him. Not everybody, but people love him and respect him. Roger Stone. Where's Roger Stone?